And welcome back. Hope you all enjoyed that lovely and beautiful duct tape from times gone by. Shout out to Milk, who's actually in the chat. Yeah, Milk was featured in that duct tape we used to cast a long time ago. It's been, I think, years. It's been a long time since I cast it with Milk. Unfortunately, Milk, you know, he got a little bit busy with IRL commitments and work as well, and as a result, we weren't able to cast as often. Hopefully, we can cast together again sometime. Sometimes we used to cast more NA-centric events like Battle of the Americas, maybe a Sentimiento Latino, maybe a Copa Hyperion, whenever we could. Milk, of course, one of the OG CranKy Ducklings from back in the day, from back in 2014, when we were all, of course, merely Ducklings in the chat of Crank. Good to see you again. Good to see you again. It's been a while. But alas, we have returned to continue on with the broadcast, to continue with the quarterfinals, as we just saw NightMare barely take down DRG against all odds, despite the fact that he lost his initial DTs and the openers didn't quite work out his way, the way that I sure wanted to work out. But now he's up against a very different kind of Zerg player. He's up against one that is far more aggressive. He's up against Dark. Let's go, Poppy. And game one is going to be taking place on Gressvan. Shelby duct tape, best duct tape. It's really good. It's really damn good. Aye. Some of Vortex's best work. As we are loading on in and spawning in the top left-hand corner of Gressvan, we have the South Korean and Protoss player representing Team Abydos, claiming the waifu as his own after taking down his teammates. It is NightMare. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the South Korean Zerg player representing Dragon KZ Gaming. It is Dark. Of course, Dark, the best Zerg player in all of South Korea, one of the best Zergs in the world. Oh boy, so quite a bit of a level up here for NightMare. So NightMare has been able to take down top Zerg players before. He has brought down Solar in the past. So shout out to NightMare. That was a couple of months ago at this point in ESL Cup Americas when that did occur. I don't know if he's ever brought down Dark though. I think that's more of a rarity. It is a little bit more difficult for Dark to drop maps or even series to players considered to be ranked lower than him. It does happen from time to time, but like Dark is a little bit more consistent just because as adverse to compared to some of how the other matchups go, Dark is typically the one to dictate the pace of the game. He's very aggressive and very willing to just cut workers, make roaches, and just be in your face sooner rather than later. Boy. So we'll see how NightMare can deal with him. As for the time being, we do have some pretty standard openers. Dark going for a hatch gas pool, unnatural, natural, all that good stuff. Likewise, NightMare going for his own gate expand. Important to bear in mind that Dark opted not to go for a proxy hatch this time. You love to see it. Again, it was a bit of a fad for a solid week where Dark would just constantly go for proxy hatches on Gressvan and on Ancient Cistern as well, but alas, now he does it a little bit more rarely. I think the last time we saw him do it was in WTL a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about how after Dark basically refined that build, it's now something that he can whip out at a moment's notice at any time, any place. It's terrifying. As NightMare is already mixing things up, we don't have a Stargate opener, we have a Twilight Council opener here from NightMare. Once again, looking to be aggressive here in the early to mid game. Now we saw in the last game on Babylon, we saw NightMare attempt to go into DTs. Didn't quite work out for him too well. I mean, he won the game at the end of the day, so maybe all went as planned. But we'll see, as once again, we haven't pulled out of gas. Twilight Council does finish up, and there's that Robo. I imagine momentarily we should be seeing that Dark Shrine. So really interesting that NightMare is kind of favoring this, because DT openers are very out of meta. Oh no, as no, we do go into Glaze. We have pulled out We are going into Glaives. No DTs, not this time. But I'm curious. Something's a little bit different here. We are mining a little bit more gas than usual. And I'm curious as to why. How many gates are going to be thrown down? How committed is this going to be? As we have 2 gates at the natural, we have 2 more in the main, so 4 in total for the time being. We haven't taken the gases at the natural base, so it looks like it's just going to be 4 gate Glaive Adept. Not too committed, not too aggressive. With this, you can expand behind this. You can take a 3rd base. This isn't the most all-in variation of Glaives. And we'll see where we do end up with this. With the abundance of gas that we have to work with as well, I think that does mean that we can transition into something like a Robotic Spay faster as well. As Dark is trying to get eyes on things, we do have a Roach Warren being thrown down pretty early on here from Dark. Ling's already on the way. Dark cutting workers here at 40. He will have an army here to deal with these Adepts. And he even does have a Ling patrolling. Does get an eye on the Adepts as they move out. Dark is fully aware of what's going on. And yeah, this is what I assumed. So because we actually had more gas mining, we have a very fast Immortal behind this. Much faster than normal. So it looks like NightMare shouldn't really be committing with these Adepts. He should be poking and prodding. But I imagine he wants to go for a follow-up Immortal push with this. And I imagine he wants to keep or preserve his Adept count. So again, he's just forcing a reaction out of Dark. 2nd Immortal is on the way. So this is setting up for a 2-base all-in. Do you have a Nexus being thrown down? But no way, we can set up for that transition. Adepts, oh god, are vulnerable. They're looking to get surrounded, and they will get surrounded. The Biles are looking to connect as well. I'll pick up before those Adepts, but everything else gets cleaned up. Ooh. Not ideal here for NightMare. The initial Adept opener didn't really do too much damage at all. We do have 2 Immortals back at home, which is definitely a good thing for him. It does mean that he's safe against a Roach counterattack, but Dark is just droning. He's just saturating his bases, working towards a lair. And the Immortals are being loaded up. NightMare just sending everything across the map. He will have 6 gates with this push. As he moves out, the Lings move in, and this 3rd base is going to be cancelled. But again, NightMare, he wasn't droning anyway. Like, NightMare wasn't probing. I don't think he really intended to actually make use of this 3rd base. He's committed here to the counterattack, to the 2-base all-in. The Immortals are looking to lay siege upon these Roaches. And they managed to get a Ravager, a Roach as well, but the Lings, they come in for a surround. Oh my god, they do dive on top of those Immortals. The Queens are zoning them away, and now the Adepts are being cleaned up. The Adepts were able to trade well against the Ravagers, but without the support of these Immortals, god. The Adepts on their own, they just can't really do too much. 4 of them do survive. The Immortals coming back into play. NightMare is breaking on through. Yeah, we only have 1 Ravager left. Things are looking a little bit dicey here for Dark. But more Roaches are trickling on in. Dark doing a good job of just buying time, dancing with the army. Yeah, waiting for more Ravagers to morph in. More Lings, more reinforcements. The army of NightMare gets dragged over towards the 3rd base, and I do think that, again, Dark is just been doing a great job of buying time. The hatchery itself is under threat, but Dark, he wants to fight. He wants to dive on top of those Immortals. Yeah, the boys are being pulled, and this army gets surrounded. Where's the Prism? That Prism is just completely out of position. It's not here to protect these Immortals, and they will go down. Ay, ay, ay. With the death of those Immortals, that's the death of this push. There was a lot of potential with it. Like, initially, NightMare was trading fairly well. But unfortunately, he only has the Adepts to work with, and he's getting some drone kills. 6 drones go down. 8? Oh my god. Getting a lot of workers. A lot of workers are getting picked off. But eventually they do get cleaned up. 10 drones go down. Dark throws down a Spire instantly. I believe this did not get scouted. Yep, was not scouted by the Adepts. And NightMare has no anti-air. Nothing shoots up. We may not even need the Mutas, as the Roaches are just going for a counterattack instantly. And what do we have at home to defend? We have one Immortal, a handful of Adepts. Oh, we're going to be able to buy some time. Force fields are thrown down, but Dark, he just dives on forward anyway. He gets the pylon, depowers the shield batteries, but the Immortal is able to hold on. Oof. Force fields are looking pretty damn good. Pretty efficient trade here from NightMare as he's attempting to transition, attempting to saturate this third base. But we don't have Blink. We don't have Blink, we don't have a Stargate. We have a lot of sentries. We are about to have a lot of Mutas. Spire is now done. There we go, 7 Mutas in production. And that may just be the nail in the coffin. Like, NightMare's already in a rough position. Like, you can see that Dark is fully saturated. He's got 70 drones working towards that 80 count. +2 on the way, bailing Nest as well. Like, Dark he's through the worst of it at this point. And as the Adepts get cleaned up, they do die before they get eyes on the Mutas as they zoom across the map. And we have nothing at home to defend. No cannons, no shield batteries, no Blink Stalkers, no nothing. Blink is on the way, and NightMare is pushing out, but this is basically just forcing him all in. As soon as the Mutas reveal themselves, he's going to have to commit. Oh, and the Mutas are actually going to be looking to collapse on this army. He's not going for the Mineral Line. Ah. We shut down the Prism. We shut down the reinforcements. The ground army of NightMare is actually looking pretty terrifying. He's able to push on through. Going to be laying siege upon the 4th base. Meanwhile, across the map, the Mutas are getting out of control. And yeah, we take down one mineral line. We're going for the other. We're going straight for the main. At the same time, reinforcements come out. We get a surround. The sentries fall. So do the Immortals. And so does everything else. GG gets called. Dark takes game number 1. GG. A pretty solid hold overall. Initially, it did look like NightMare was trading well when his Immortal showed up, and he was able to actually shade on top of the Ravagers and almost kill every single Ravager. Things were looking a little bit scary there for Dark, but we saw NightMare was maybe a little bit indecisive. If you remember, he was like posturing between the natural and the third, and then the natural and then the third again. Like, he was struggling to kind of like decide where he wanted to commit. Eventually he went to the 3rd base, and he did leave his prison behind. He exposed his own army, he exposed his own Immortal source around, and after he lost his initial Immortals, that was kind of the end of his aggression. Oh, GG, well played. Dark does take game 1, and now we're going to be getting ready for game number 2. Game number 2 is going to be taking place on Ancient Cistern. Let's go. It was looking so good for NightMare. It was. It was looking good until it wasn't. Hey, yes, here we go, spawning in the top right-hand corner of Ancient Cistern. We have the South Korean Protoss player representing Team Arbidos down in the series, but not out. It is NightMare. And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the South Korean Zerg player representing Dragon KZ Gaming. It is Dark. Let's go. Oh, you love to see it. Oh, never mind. I thought Dark was going to go for a 14 hatch. Just going to be chilling here. Going for a hatch first. NightMare, a little bit late to the party. Oh, so Hatch Gas Pool here from Dark is going to be able to get his natural up and running, which means he will have a much better defense against Oracles and Glaive Adepts. So already a good start here for our Zerg player. NightMare, meanwhile, just setting up back at home, as he usually would. And with this probe, he's going to get eyes on the timing of the hatchery, figure out what has been going on, and immediately just gets the hell out of there. Fair enough, fair enough. As this is a bit of a larger map in general. And yeah, NightMare isn't going to be looking to be too aggressive, too cheeky. Because the scouting probe goes back home, that also means that Dark can skip his first wave of lings. It means that he can take a third base faster. Usually in the early game, Zerg players are forced to make lings because the probe is like being annoying and patrolling at the third base location and just delaying it. But because the probe went home and Dark saw it go home, he can take a faster third. So very greedy stuff here from Dark. And again, he was allowed to get away with this just because NightMare just backed off and just gave him full map control. Again, typically you're not able to get a third base this quickly, but again, without a probe, Dark, there's nothing that can stop him. Let's go. Of course, eventually Dark will have to make lings because of the first adept, but until the adept comes out, Dark, he can get away with just making queens and just making drones. Back at home, NightMare going for that Stargate opener as well. Which is important to point out. If you remember last game, he did go for Glaive Adepts into a 2-base all-in. This game, on a larger map like Ancient Sister and 2-base all-ins, they don't do anywhere near as well. It takes them longer to move out. It takes them longer to reinforce. So NightMare is going for a much more standard opener, looking to get into a macro game. You love to see it. Do love to see it. First adept does fake a shade across the map. We do force lings out from Dark just to be safe, just to be sure that he's able to deal with that first adept. And oh, we are actually going for a Void Ray first. Interesting here from NightMare. So with this Void Ray, it doesn't necessarily mean Skytoss. It could lead to Skytoss, don't get me wrong. But with this, we're going to be denying vision. We're going to be sniping this Overlord and keeping Dark in the dark as to what NightMare is up to. From here, I imagine we're going to be seeing a bit of a later Oracle. We'll see. As the first Void Ray does come out, is going to be looking to hunt down those Overlords. NightMare setting up for his third base. And we'll see if he throws down any kind of hidden tech after the death of this Overlord as well. As Dark is just more concerned with droning back at home, just being safe and secure. There it is. So this is a little bit greedy here from NightMare. He goes Void Ray. He skips his Oracle, his second his second Stargate unit after the Void Ray, and he goes much faster into this Twilight Council instead. This is looking like Glaives. This is kind of looking like a Glaives follow-up. We do warp in a sentry defensively back to the third base. Okay, we do have a forge, so it's not going to be Glaives. We are going to be going for something a little bit more robust. Whether it's Blink Stalkers or Chargelots, one or the other. There it is. A Blink is on the way. So yeah, NightMare just cutting some corners. The downside, of course, is that once again, NightMare just gives Dark a lot of freedom. That's the scary thing. I don't know if this is a wise move against Dark specifically. Like, Dark, if you let him be greedy, he'll be greedy. Like, we already saw that in the early game. We already saw that with the timing of the third base. Without any Oracles, Dark is free to drone, take a fourth, take a fifth, drone. Like, there's nothing to slow him down. There's nothing to harass. We have a couple of Glaiveless Adepts moving out, which is nice. But Dark should be able to drone up to around 66 before being too concerned with, you know, creating an army. So here we go. We have a Macro Hatch. We have a Macro Hatch on the way. Bailey Nest, +1 melee, lair, 4th base. We've drawn up to 62. Just going to be making a pretty large link force here just to be safe, just to be secure. As we are going to be fanning out our links across the map, we're going to get some scouting information. We do get eyes on the Adepts. And we're also looking to get eyes on the third base saturation. Oh, as NightMare is setting up for a proxy. Oh my god, a proxy gateway here as well, which is going to get spotted by Dark. He does barely come across the pylons. How many gates do we have to work with? Oh, yep, we're going we're going for a 3-base all-in. We have 8 gates behind this. No Robo, no Bay, no splash damage of any kind. Pure Blink Stalkers. Did I say 8? I meant to say 9. Jesus, we're doubling down very hard on this. Typically, the 8th gate is the proxy gateway, but no. Is going to be used. The 9th gate is going to be used to reinforce across the map. As NightMare is making nothing but Blink Stalkers, he wants to try to break the defenses here of Dark. Dark setting up a surround, is coming in from behind, is actually getting on top of those pylons. The Bailers are looking for those connections. Ooh, we do force the Blink. But we have even more links coming from behind. And we do surround these Stalkers. Ay, ay, ay. Overall, because of the Blink, we're able to defend well enough. Bailing Rumbai gets a couple of workers, not too many. But we get a full surround. And even though these Stalkers are being forced back, okay, we're actually not going for the pylons. We just want the Stalkers, papi. Yeah, and with +1 melee, these Lings annihilate the Stalkers. Oh my god, it's not even close. Like, NightMare, he's like going for a 3-base all-in, and he's running away from Dark. He's like, ah. Ay, 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 as the Lings completely shut this down. The pylons, the Stalkers, the Void Ray sure can rain down upon everything, but Dark was more than ready for this. Cut workers here at 61, if you recall. He did lose a couple of workers to, I think, some Adepts on the left-hand side. But outside of that, the pure Ling overwhelms the forces of NightMare. Can even break into the natural. NightMare does end up landing a force field in the end, but this 3rd base is looking so exposed. Overcharge is going to be buying some time. The Lings, they don't care. They care a little bit. As Dark is working towards his infestation pit to get into Hive Tech. Something that Dark does more often than not in ZvPs. If he's allowed to on Ancient Cistern, he will be taking up towards Ultras. Roaches are in production though. Dark double expanding. He knows he has so much freedom right now. So much breathing room. Again, NightMare is kind of stuck. Like, he doesn't have any additional tech. He doesn't have +2. No Templar Archives. No Robo. He's just stuck on a pure gateway army with +1. As the game progresses, NightMare's army is going to get worse and worse. He's going to be able to deny this top left-hand base, at least. And there we go. Charge is now on the way, so at least he's going to have Zealots to help him out. Which is something, I guess. Dark was double expanding. It's at Hive on the horizon. We've dropped up to 71 at this point. And a pretty damn good worker counts. There's nothing stopping Dark from droning up to 80. Once this Hive is done, show us the Ultra Cavern. Show us, Papi. Show us. We have made a decent amount of roaches, to be fair. And NightMare is going to be looking to deny this 6th base, at least for a second time. So the Hive is now done. And what are we going to make? What are we going to use with this Hive? We can go into Vipers, of course. We can go into the Ultra Cavern, as we were saying earlier. There's +3 on the way for all those Lings. +3 Adrenal Glands. Rocks are being cleaned up. I'm waiting for it, Bobby. I'm waiting for it. Stark actually doesn't have a lot of gas to work with right now. As NightMare is going to be poking in towards that northern base, and once again just runs into a wall of roaches, is going to be forced back. And Dark has now max on Ling Bane Roach. Are we even getting Burrow? I mean, why not? We have Pneumatized Carapace, Burrow on the way. We're getting it all, Papi. We're getting it all. These Archons are going to pose a bit of a threat, but Dark, with his maxed out army, he's pulling a NightMare apart. Bailey's a roll into the mineral line. Up! And they do find their connections. At the same time, the Bailey's roll into the third base as well. The third and the fourth have both been broken. Archons are doing what they can. And we are going to be able to force back this Roach army. But the damage has been done. 33 probes do go down. Not like this, Buffy. Not like this. And we can see NightMare trying to commit to a counterattack as well, but the reinforcements are more than enough. We don't have +2 yet, but Adrenal Glands does kick in for all these Lings. NightMare breaking through this army, but Dark, he's just waiting for his reinforcements. He's waiting for his next round of Roaches and Lings to pop out. And with that, this should spell the end of NightMare's army. GG gets called, and Dark will take the series 2-0. Ooh, in a pretty convincing fashion. GG. I say convincing fashion. Game 2 was more convincing. Game 1, NightMare had his moment. NightMare definitely had his moment in Game 1 where he was almost able to pull off his 2-base all-in, where, you know, he was making Dark sweat a little bit. Here in Game 2, Dark had a lot of freedom early on. He had a lot of, we mentioned it a couple of times, a lot of breathing room to just kind of drone up, get his bases up and running, and to eventually work towards his mass Ling army. And he was able to completely swallow up the 9 Ling Stalkers of NightMare. GG, very well played there. And Dark advances on to the semifinals. Oh boy, he advances on to the semis to face his next Protoss opponent. Our first semifinals matches here, it is going to be Dark versus Classic. The ZvPs continue, Poppy, they continue. Let's go.